I call to order the Wheeling Plan Commission for Thursday, November 15th, 2012. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Burns. Here. Commissioner Dorban.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Here. Commissioner Fato, I'm here. Commissioner Schaaf.
Here.
Mr. Stylen. Here. Chairman Maloney.
Here. Mr. Jennings, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes this evening.
Citizens' concerns?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can commissioners offer a change to the agenda?
Sure, go ahead.
I'd like to add an item to discuss the changing of the, whatever that sheet that we have petitioners sign at the conclusion of dockets.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens' concerns and comments. Are there any citizens in the audience who would like to speak? There being none, we close that section. Consent items, docket number SCBA 12-51, CubeSmart, 1004 South Milwaukee Avenue, appearance approval of an awning sign. This is a storage facility.
So moved.
I'll second with a comment.
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure, and Andrew said he would check that the door light is being removed and I presume replaced with over-the-head lighting that will be provided by the awning, because the awning is illuminated. Just want to make sure that the light is on at the times that a normal door light would be on and that the lighting level is sufficient to light up the doorway area. So that,
Thank you.
Andrew said that's a building code
Right.
type thing, so just want to make sure that
Very good.
it gets recorded.
Motion was made and seconded. Do I hear?
I don't think, I didn't hear a second.
I did second.
Oh, you did, I'm sorry. Motion was made by Commissioner Fato, seconded by Commissioner Stylen. Commissioner Fato, I vote yes. Commissioner Stylen.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorban.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes.
And Chairman Maloney.
Yes. Items for review, this is a public hearing?
Yeah, 1 second, I'm just typing up the last one.
No.
Yeah, it is. I have to read that.
Well, Andrew gets done here.
Great.
Always holding things up.
You done?
I am done.
Docket number 2012-18, Active Transportation Plan, Amendment to the Village Comprehensive Plan. Mr. Rufato.
Village of Wheeling is seeking amendment to the comprehensive plan for the Village of Wheeling, Chapter 6, Transportation Plan to incorporate the 2012 Active Transportation Plan. That's it.
Mr. Jennings?
Thank you. We have with us here tonight two of the consultants who've been working with us on this project from the Active Transportation Alliance, Dan Persky and Barb Cornu. We've been working on this plan in some form or another for quite some time. This commission, I'm sure, is aware through its involvement with the Bike and Pedestrian Task Force of the effort that preceded this effort. And for roughly just about the last year, we've been working with the Active Transportation Alliance on this plan. And at this time, we're excited to have the first public hearing on this item. The draft plan is available. You have it in your packet. And at the end of this presentation discussion, we'll go through the next steps for this. But at this time, I'd like to have the consultants come forward and go through the plan.
This is a public hearing. I'm going to have to swear both of you in. You would raise your hands. Do you swear everything you're about to tell us is the truth?
Yes.
Into the microphone, would you please give your name and business address, both of you?
Sure. My name is Daniel Persky from Active Transportation Alliance. We're located at 9 West Hubbard Street, Chicago, Illinois.
My name is Barbara Cornu from Active Transportation Alliance, 9 West Hubbard Street in Chicago, Illinois.
Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chairman Maloney and the Commissioners. As I said, my name is Dan Persky from Active Transportation Alliance. I'm here with Barb Cornu, also from Active Trans. We, along with another firm called Trans Systems, were hired as consultants to the Village of Wheeling to help develop this new active transportation plan for the village. And what I wanted to do tonight was take you through a little bit of the process we went through and how we came about the recommendations that are contained in this draft plan tonight. Can I control the?
Yeah, the left side.
Yeah.
Should be good.
Okay. So quick overview. We're going to go through why the need for this plan now, the planning process, the big stuff, what's actually in this plan, and then hopefully a vibrant conversation with you guys. So, why this plan now? Wheeling is a wonderfully successful community with diverse land uses, which has a vibrant population of people who are already going about by all modes. People are driving, people are taking pace, they're using Metra, they're walking, they're biking. But there is much more that can be done to enhance the already greatness that exists in Wheeling and make it even a little easier and a little bit safer for people to walk and bike. So the first steps that the village undertook really goes back to about 2003 when your comprehensive plan was adopted. In it, there are many policy statements and goals related to promoting active transportation and multimodal transportation. Then in 2010, a bike pedestrian task force was formed and helped form the nucleus of a steering committee for this effort, along with several of you who participated in this process as well. Developing this plan is going to provide a lot for the village. It's going to make it much easier for you to leverage grant funding to accomplish those goals from your comprehensive plan related to active transportation. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to incorporate promotion and safety for bicyclists and pedestrians into your ongoing projects and processes. And it's going to help you focus and plan for projects that are going on by the other jurisdictions that have so much sway, unfortunately, here as well, including Cook County with both the Forest Preserve and county roads, and IDOT with the many state roads that form an important nucleus or core to the transportation system within Wheeling. So how did we get here? The first thing to note is the community input process here, it rocked. We had a majority of you participate in our community planning effort, engagement efforts in some way. We also had more than 225 community members who responded to surveys. We were able to get input from almost all of your neighboring municipalities, including Buffalo Grove and Arlington Heights. We work with the Forest Preserve, we work with IDOT, we work with pretty much anybody who would have an interest in what was happening here. We also made a big effort to ensure that we had diverse community engagement. Wheeling is, of course, a diverse community, and we wanted to make sure that the community engagement reached all those populations. And this was especially important for us in reaching out to the business community, since Wheeling does have such a large and successful business community. We also undertook a lot of research that was not just the type of research we could do back at our offices. We went on an 18-mile bike ride of the village, led by two of your staff here tonight in Umbrook. We had an extensive number of focus groups and key stakeholder interviews, and we learned a lot from this, a lot that would not have otherwise have been apparent. And we did a lot of field work that I can assure you, every single recommendation in this plan is because we actually rode our bikes and walked on those roads, every single one of those. And what came about from that is a plan, draft plan that's in front of you. So what did we learn from this process? We learned a few very key things. We learned that residents really want more connectivity between neighborhoods, between what we traditionally define as neighborhoods and what we also think of as subdivisions, which are neighborhoods in themselves. We learned that residents want more education, they want more encouragement efforts, and they want stricter enforcement of existing, not necessarily new, traffic safety laws. In terms of infrastructure, they want access to trails. You've got two great trails here, Prospect Heights Bike Trail and then, of course, the Des Plaines River Trail. They want sidewalks, and there's a lot of attention given to sidewalks in this plan. And they brought up a lot of concerns concerning crossing major roads, roads like Dundee out there. So there's a lot in there about improvements to crossings. After all this community engagement, we work with the steering committee to develop a vision statement. A vision statement is what we see the community looking like for pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit riders in the future. It's just like in a community comprehensive planning effort where you have a vision for the overall community. This is a vision for this group of people within the community. And you have it in front of you. It's also in all the documents that we produced for this project. So now let's get into the great stuff, what's actually in the plan. First, a quick thing about how the plan is structured. It's structured into a series of goals. Goals are just a way of saying what the areas of focus are. It's a way of organizing. That's all it is, a way of organizing our thoughts. Objectives are what it is we're actually trying to accomplish. They are measurable, and they are measurable, sorry. And then strategies are the individual projects that it is we want to accomplish. So, what are those goals and objectives and strategies? Well, we structured the goals into 4 main chapters. Each chapter is separate goals. The network chapter is about how we're going to provide for more options and connectivity for people who are walking, biking, and riding transit. The policies are the codes, the codes and ordinances that we can leverage, as well as the internal processes and procedures of the village that we can leverage to develop a more comprehensive and safe transportation network. The programming is the education, encouragement, enforcement activities that our community engagement suggested were so necessary here. And the implementation chapter is a plan for the next decade or so for how we can actually accomplish the vision that we set out. All right. You have in there a copy of the full plan. If you're looking at the full plan, the maps are pretty easy to look at. We also have a few paper copies if for any reason you want that. The network. The purpose of the network that's proposed here is to build a complete, connected, and safe network that connects all the neighborhoods within Wheeling. It connects people to places that they've identified as the destinations they want to go to. And Wheeling has a lot of destinations. It has regional open places like the Des Plaines River Trail. It has terrific municipal facilities, including, of course, like this campus, the schools, the libraries, and a lot of employment centers. These are all important destinations, as well as a lot of retail destinations. The network is the collection of on-street and off-street accommodations. So it addresses what we can do with the roadways, but it also addresses what we can do with the trails and paths that go near streets but not on them. The plan is meant to be used as a guide, just like a comprehensive plan. It's a guide for the near-term, mid-term future of the community. Some of the recommendations in here are very much low-hanging fruit. Some of them will take longer, and we've done a detailed analysis in the implementation chapter to help you understand which fit into those various categories. All of these are projects that right now they're at the plan stage. They're going to need more analysis. They're going to need engineering work. But all of these are achievable given the resources of Wheeling and the other agencies that are so critical to the implementation of this plan. And they also, they all meet national state guidelines for design of the network. All right. Here are the network objectives. I'm going to extremely quickly just list these off, but you can read the actual plan document to see more. So one thing that was requested of us is that really we have what we call a toolbox of practices that can be used. Wheeling Cylinder has roadway projects going on all the time, and we wanted to give you guys a toolbox or a toolkit of best practices that you could use in every project. Not just those we identify as priorities here, but anytime you're making improvements, we want to give you strategies you could use. Just pointing out a couple more. There was a real need to focus on local streets here. So there's a lot of attention given to local roads, residential streets. There was also a lot of attention given to the major roads. A lot of that was issues related to crossings. There are also issues about being able to travel along the road, like sidewalks missing and alongside some of them. And then we also have some recommendations in there concerning pace and access to the metro station as well. The following slides are going to illustrate how these how the toolbox of recommendations and strategies we have here can be applied specifically to Wheeling. Okay, first, trails. So Wheeling, as I said, has 2 excellent trails. It also has lots of great short paths or trails that connect neighborhoods. We have a lot of recommendations in our plan to improve better, safer, more direct, quicker access to the Des Plaines River Trail. We also have recommendations in here concerning providing safer crossings for the Prospect Heights bike path, where it crosses major roads. And then we have some ideas in here for signage along both trails to make it easier for people to get from the trails to the many businesses and other destinations in Wheeling that are nearby, such as the entire Restaurant Row stretch. Another example, bicycle route signage. This is one of those great low-hanging fruits. Bicycle route signage really is important in a community with a strategic regional location like Wheeling, right here at the very northern edge of the county, with access to a major regional trail, with access to huge employment centers. The signage will make it a lot easier for people to navigate the community. Basically, they have 3 elements to them. They show destination, distance, direction. Those are the 3 things that people need to know in order to find a way how to get places. This photo, by the way, is actually from a signage plan we developed for nearby community Des Plaines. But the same type of signage would work here in Wheeling. Side paths, multi-use paths. So at this head, there were issues addressed that were brought up about traveling along major roadways, and we have a lot of recommendations in here for what we call side paths. Side paths are extra wide sidewalks. A sidewalk is maybe 4 or 5 feet of space. A side path is 8 to 10 feet or so of space. What this does is it makes it easy for people using multiple modes of transportation, bicyclists, rollerbladers, pedestrians, all to go along the same path, and you put these along major roads. Those are the places people want to go. Examples in our plan, Lake Cook Road, Dundee Road. It's going to be the state and the county roads where the side paths are going to be most relevant. And we think they can have a real impact on improving the environment for pedestrians especially, as well as the other modes on those streets where there is so many destinations, especially so much retail. Bike lanes. You already have one in Wheeling, and we have a proposal for some more. Bike lanes provide, at a very low cost, protected, dedicated space for cyclists. They usually are put on streets with a moderate level of traffic, and you have a lot of those in Wheeling. And they provide a really good direct connection to destinations. We really emphasize here putting them on roads that connect to employment centers because they are a great way for people to combine a trip on Metro, for example, and then a short bike ride on a bike lane to get to where they work. A few examples of where we suggest putting these in are Palatine and Northgate Parkway. Northgate especially shows what I was talking about in terms of employment location, but it also has residential not that far away from it. So that would be a prime example of where we would suggest putting in a bike lane. Then crossings, that I've mentioned a few times how important this was. So we categorized the intersections in Wheeling into 3 main different categories, and we gave you a set of customized tools for each of those different typologies, each of those different types of crossings. And so what it ended up being is each major intersection in Wheeling is going to get a set of those customized treatments that works given the specific types of populations that are using those crossings. Given if it's a proximity to a school or a park or employment or retail, they all get different types of treatments depending on what are the major uses of that area. I'll go through this a little quick so I can take your questions. Policies. It's really about leveraging your existing policies and practices and procedures of both the village as well as other key governmental agencies to help you develop the safest and best possible transportation network. The policy recommendations we put in here reflect best practices in this area, and one of the key objectives of the policies is to really ensure that all new development that's done in Wheeling is done in a way that is friendly to bicyclists and pedestrians. Then programming. Programming is what educates the population, it's what encourages the population, and it's what our police department does. It's about enforcement. This is how we ensure that people know how to use the network, that they just know about the network, and that they act in the safest possible behaviors. And then finally we get to implementation. This is where we turn the plan into reality. It's where we establish the priorities. It's how we set up monitoring or oversight procedures. It's how we ensure coordination between all those many government agencies, and it's how we identify the funding that's necessary to make this happen. That is a very quick overview of the planning process and the major outline of the recommendations that we have here, and I definitely welcome your questions, your comments, and your conversation.
Thank you. Very quick question. What is that building on the top?
What's what?
What's showing up now? What's the building?
Oh, that's from another community. It's not
Yeah,
Wheeling.
I know. We're just curious.
I actually don't know. Do you remember? Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak? I see no one in there. I close this portion of the public hearing, and we'll start with Commissioner Dorband.
Thank you. Well, I was extremely impressed by the whole brochure. I thought it had a lot of information in there, and of course, there was a lot of nice shots of Wheeling and different activities and the bike rodeo and things like that. So I was really impressed with it. Is this pretty much the final version of what it's going to be? Is that your intention? I mean, it looks great the way it is, but I don't know what your plans are as far as that's concerned.
Well, that's really up to you. I mean, if there are changes that you guys want, then absolutely those changes should be incorporated. There are a few things we're still talking about with the village staff, but nothing major that still needs to be done here. So really, that's a matter for you guys to decide how comfortable you feel with it going forward.
Well, it's very impressive, and I can see how many hours are put into this. It must have taken you ages to put this all together. So all I can say is I'm extremely impressed. And
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stylen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a little talk previous to the meeting this morning with the petitioner here, and you know, it's really, the plan is fantastic. It gives a good direction for, especially for a comprehensive plan. I think that really sets a very clear objective, but I think there's some maybe fine tuning that one can do in terms of maybe, you know, I forget what the mileage was for sidewalks, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars of sidewalks that we needed in the community, and a lot more miles than I would have ever expected. You know, and some things like, can we prioritize things by putting sidewalks on one side of the street in lieu of doing both sides of the street at the same time? You know, I don't know, there may be some financial benefits of doing things one way or the other. Another thing we talked about was, you know, especially I saw your one slide where the paths were, the soft side things were made out of asphalt as opposed to concrete, and maybe that might be a way that we can lessen the initial cost of installing sidewalks. But again, I don't know, you know, how they weather, how well they last in, you know, winter versus summer type stuff, longevity of concrete versus, you know, maintenance of asphalt. But I think those are additional things that we might be able to look at and kind of prioritize. Andrew, comments?
Yeah, I think when Mr. Persky referred to what the staff is still working with them on is the sidewalk. What we've been trying to do thus far is combine the sidewalk prioritization information that we were working on with our GIS department based on proximity to facilities, proximity to gaps in the sidewalk, that sort of thing. We're trying to take that and combine it with a policy, a sidewalk policy tailored to the village. So we've been working with them on taking a general sidewalk policy, combining it with what we've got so that we can turn it into more of a prioritization based on some of the features here. There's a little bit of, you know, some of what we still need to work on with that is taking the policies and seeing what policies we have that exist, what we don't have. And that's probably more on the implementation end after this plan. But there's that last piece, I think, is what we'd like to have just sort of firmed up before this is ready to go as a recommendation.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I noticed in the plan or the map was that way far north on McHenry Road, but somewhere down in the area of maybe Horker's Farm to Lake Cook Road, it looks like the sidewalk plan for that area kind of stopped, and it was more at, what's the road with the stoplight that,
Epticasic?
no,
St. Mary?
Wyland?
The other one?
no, down,
Bernard?
in our community, where the bike path is.
Oh.
Lexington.
Lexington,
Oh,
right, I'm sorry. It seems like after that, the plan for future sidewalk was kind of limited, and just wondering, there was some alternative routes planned, just wondering why you didn't concentrate on that area. It would seem like a direct route to,
So a couple things on what you said. Yes, it is absolutely true that the northwest area of the community has a bigger issue concerning a lack of sidewalks than many of the other areas in the community. I'll also say in terms of, while the numbers might appear large at first, they're being skewed by a few things. They're being skewed by Palatine Road and Milwaukee Avenue, which aren't under your control, having some major gaps, especially Milwaukee Avenue near the airport, where that may not be the biggest of priorities, and they're being skewed by those large developments in the northwest area. Most areas in Wheeling actually are very well covered by sidewalks. Compared to other communities we'll look at, you're doing very well. In terms of your question concerning the areas up in the northwest, so that's one of the few places in Wheeling where there is still a little room left for development. And so this is an area where we think there should be attention. It needs to be done through the planning process for those developments. And we definitely would suggest that you make sure those developments do accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists in all ways. And there's little things that can be done as well as bigger things. But we just want to say that should really be done as part of the comprehensive planning efforts for those large parcels that exist in that area.
that brings up, I think, a good point. When I talked about asphalt versus concrete, our current zoning codes call for concrete sidewalks, but maybe in undeveloped areas, we put in asphalt strips until they do get developed and replaced with more permanent, more durable sidewalk entities. I like that idea. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, although your plan really didn't go into it in any great detail, was the vote on the monorail from Edens to, I think, Route 12 that would kind of go through our area of town. But I thought that was interesting and would like to see that too in the future. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you. That's a very nice presentation, and I'm sure there was a lot of work done into it, and it's going to take me a while to digest a lot of that and to see what projects. The one that comes to mind is the Lake Cook Road expansion from the railroad west down through Buffalo Grove. And I'm sure something that could be worked into that. That's, I don't know the time frames of that. I do know that it's there. The program is there.
To be
But
honest-
it's just going to take me, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's just going to take me a while to digest and to try to look at other projects that are coming down.
Sure, I'll just address, on Lake Cook Road, our recommendation is for a side path to be developed there. To be honest, there really isn't much else that could be done there. The road is so high speed and so high traffic, there's not much else we could propose there. A side path, however, can provide great benefits for access to those major retail centers that are on Lake Cook, and it'll provide a great regional connectivity to the communities east and west of here. It's what the Illinois Department of Transportation calls for as well, for a roadway in this area with those types of conditions, and it was one of the more obvious solutions to us in terms of what we needed to do. One of our major things we did try and address near Lake Cook was the connectivity between the nearby residential neighborhoods that don't have an easy way to get to the retail that's on Lake Cook Road. And some of the great low-hanging fruit recommendations that we have in the plan are to provide little short connections between those residential communities and Lake Cook that's only, like 50 yards away.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Rufato.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions about the policies. You recommended a number of policies, and one of them that really piques my interest is adopt a must-stop policy for pedestrians, and there's a number of other policies in there. So how do we, and maybe this is more for staff, in the policies that are there, how do those get pushed? How do those get started and incubated and pushed through? Is it from us? Is it from the Plan Commission? Is it from staff that looks at the policies that we have, compares them to the policies that we have? Because I saw upgrading snow removal, and it said, yeah, we've got fines for snow, if you don't remove the snow, but do we have anything in there that says that they actually have to remove the snow?
Well, it starts with something like this.
Okay.
The board takes a look at a policy like that, direct us to implement it. So the implementation end of a policy like that could be as simple as modifying your vehicles and traffic regulations. So there could be something that just needs to be a minor tweak. There may be a need for a more comprehensive look at something like a complete streets policy that has all of these things in it, maybe redundant, but could in one document adopt a series of regulations to address issues like that. But I would say the short answer, a plan like this, and then start going through the implementation and determining exactly what this means. So if you look at the implementation tables in the appendix, some of these things are one item changes. If you take it and compare it to the municipal code, what does implementation mean? In this case, it's a specific section and modifying it.
So is that, when you're talking about that, is that the table of complete and prioritized list of recommended projects? Because I'm having a hard time trying to read it because it keeps on twisting on me. Is it?
There's a little button on the side for that.
I know. Are there policies? Are there policies in here also?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The tables have
Right.
tabs. I don't have it right in front of me, but the tables have tabs in them.
Page
Okay.
90 has the implementation tables for the policy chapter.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
No. Well, I was looking at that, but in addition, I was looking at the table that you have there that is complete and prioritized list of recommended projects.
Yeah, and that's for the network improvements, for the infrastructure improvements.
That's just
Yes.
infrastructure, so that.
Yes.
So there is no prioritization of policies.
No, there is. That's what's on page 90. Page 90 has our analysis for the implementation of the policies.
So, page 90. The actual page 90 of the document or
Yes.
page 90?
It's 97
Page 9,
of 205.
page number 90.
Page number 90.
It's 97 of 205.
Okay, got
In
it.
it, there.
Okay, this is what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
97 on ours.
Yeah, okay.
It is 97 of this document.
Yeah, it's 97 of the document.
There you go.
Okay. This is what I'm looking for. So from this, Andrew, you can take that and, is it staff or is it the village board make a they might reprioritize this? And does it come from them? Does it come?
It can come, the Plan Commission, if you have a plan like this that's adopted, Say, for example, the village board adopts the plan, it's amendment to the comprehensive plan. The plan commission can take something like that and suggest a recommendation to the board to enact a policy. So if it's outside of the purview of the commission, you can't take an action outside of the sections of the municipal code that you have the authority to hold hearings on.
So for instance, we could, for instance, if another business came up here, you know, and something happened to the post office, and they're going to build something there, and part of that are the sidewalks there.
Okay.
We say we want, what you call them, side path. We want really the width of a side path instead of what our normal code is for a sidewalk, so we can go to 8 feet to accommodate a side path.
Okay.
And that would emanate from the Plan Commission because we're working on that. Or could we change our,
You can change the code. So Title
Change the
19,
code.
Title 19 and Title 21, Title 19 and Title 17. So those two sections of the municipal code could be updated to reflect more directly the recommendations for implementation of a plan like this.
Specific areas, could it be done by working with the master plan?
You could, yes.
okay.
So you could identify an area, there's a handful of different ways to do it. I mean, one of them could be, and we've talked to the consultants to some degree about this, there are different ways to go about implementing. You can create programs, incentive programs. There's other ways to do it. You can fund it out of your own capital improvements. You can do it in a combination of things. So there's no one way that you have to do it, but you do have the ability to modify the requirements for sidewalk installation.
Okay, all right. That was really the only question that I had as moving through this, and I echo the previous commissioners in saying this was a lot of work went into it, and somehow somebody got onto the first page of the document that looks familiar, so I don't know how that person got on there, but irrespective of that, it's a great, it's really, and hopefully this doesn't go on a shelf somewhere and gather dust, because there's a lot of work put into this, and the adoptive policy, adopting a must-stop policy, gosh, it's just high on my list, because I go down, and I know we deal with 83. I go down 83 and I see, well, and it's not in our area, but at Prospect Heights, where you cross 83 for the bike path, okay? If you ever tried to cross that, thinking that somebody's going to stop, you're really taking your life in your own hand. And then when we get further north by the high school, on Dennis Street, you see all those, and I saw a kid trying to cross the other day, and I tried to slow down, but there was a car coming back behind me at 50 miles an hour. So.
To your point about the letting the plan collect dust, one of the recommendations in the implementation section would be designed to prevent that. There's a recommendation, I don't know what page it's on, so if you can, I don't know if you know where it is faster than I do, but one of the recommendations was to continue the Bike and Pedestrian Task Force, have the same schedule of quarterly meetings, so there'd be a entity who's got an interest in not letting it get dusty.
And then lastly, I know this, and maybe I can do it through Goodreader, but is there a way just to get the PDF of the file so I can store it in a separate folder so I have it?
Yes, and yes, we're
okay.
planning to do, we can
The finalized version?
Yeah, we'll have the finalized version. Actually, we're planning on, between now and the recommendation, we're planning on having a public version so that people can see what you're looking
Great,
at
on our website.
But we do have, once it's adopted, absolutely, we plan on having this on the website in a navigable form like this.
Great, thank you.
Jim, just to let you know, it's real easy to copy things off your iPad to your home computer, and then you can do anything you want with them.
Oh, I know from our website, I know the Village of Wheeling website, but,
No, I mean, from your iPad, you can copy it right to your home computer.
okay,
I'll tell you about it later.
great, thank you. That's all I had, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I echo my fellow commissioners on a job well done on this. There was definitely a lot of work. One of the things that jumped out at me was the item on page, 65, about updating the parking requirements for new developments.
That's not the same page.
The village should reduce parking requirements for developments that provide bicycle and pedestrian facilities beyond those required by current law. I don't think I would necessarily agree with that, because during the winter months, those people are going to still be driving.
That's a good point.
Andrew, do you want me to address that?
Sure.
Okay. Basically, what we're getting at here is not necessarily specific levels of parking that should be required, but just that there could be incentives that are built in for developments that go above and beyond what we think is necessary. So we never want to reduce below the necessary level of parking, but we do think there's a way with a lot of the employment centers that there may be a way that they can incentivize active transportation, such as through using Pace's van pool system or by biking from Metro or something like that, and reduce some of the demand for parking. It is not an issue that we saw as being a major issue. I don't believe it was, in terms of the vote was got in terms of community engagement. But there are ways you can incentivize active transportation without taking away necessary levels of parking.
Okay. And then on page 63 of your report, 3.2.8, just a housekeeping thing, I guess. The total of X miles of sidewalk gaps.
Ooh, that's bad. The actual number, if you want it, is 32 miles. It's on the map that's in the appendix,
I saw
and we
it
forgot
somewhere
to
else.
copy that number into there.
And then right in the bottom of that paragraph, it reads kind of strange. Or the village may explore opportunities to modify its subdivision code to include require a contribution.
That's obviously a typo. Yes. Good find. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
That's all I had, thanks.
Thank you.
Great job, though.
Commissioner Burns.
Librarians read things.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was, I know, 2 years of work. It's a great report full of suggestions for best practices. It's going to take some time and some money to, adapt some of these and bring them to reality, but this plan gives us some goals to work towards, and that's important. Andrew, you said something that piqued my interest about there might be something in this plan that's not in the plan commission's jurisdiction to make recommendations to the board about, what would that be?
Maybe I should make the distinction. So the Plan Commission, in anything within this plan, the Plan Commission certainly can recommend adoption of the plan. Some of the implementation is going to be in sections of the code that the Plan Commission does not hold hearings on. So there may be something in the vehicle code. You can make a recommendation on it, but you can't hold a hearing and make a recommendation in the same sense that you can for Title 21, Title 17, Title 19.
Gotcha.
So those are the village items that are outside of the commission's hearing authority. There are other recommendations to this plan that are completely outside of the village's capacity to implement, except in a coordinating role. So there are some policies and programs that relate to the school district and the park district where the village would be in support role and not the ultimate implementing authority. So there are other things, and that's one of the nice things about the Bike and Pedestrian Task Force is it has representation from some of those other some other bodies, as well as the stakeholder group and steering committee for this plan. But so there's going to be different ways to implement different recommendations.
Thank you, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings, where do we go from here?
Well, the plan, as we noticed, I think there's a couple of minor typos here and there that we'll continue to catch. The staff, as I said earlier, is working with the consultants right now on finalizing the sidewalk prioritization and the sidewalk policy section. We have to figure out exactly where we're going to put it, how we're going to phrase it, how far it goes toward recommendation. The next step for us will be working with the consultants on that. While we do that, I anticipate that we'll put a version of the plan very similar to what you have onto our website. Let people know from this point on that this plan has if you'd like to comment on it, we'll have the final version of it is going to be drafted very shortly. I think what we would suggest is, in order for us to wrap up the last piece on the sidewalk, a continuation of this hearing to the first meeting in December. From that meeting, we expected it would be a short discussion and be in an adoptable form that the Planning Commission could then make a recommendation at that meeting that the board adopt the plan. And then it would go to the board for discussion and possibly adoption. Yes.
Andrew, one thing that, in addition to adopting this as an appendage to the comprehensive plan, I would like to, at the same time, propose to the village board whatever mechanics are necessary to generally change our zoning code to give a little bit more meat to some of the items that are in this plan. And I think Jim was kind of referring to that as well. Can we, the zoning code says new buildings have to have a 3 or 4 foot wide sidewalk. Can we, in that section of the code, say, rather than 3 or 4 feet, as documented in the transportation plan or something like that, so that the zoning code itself references the plan and gives a little more meat, I think, to, some petitioner that says, the zoning code says I can build a 3-foot sidewalk, that's what I want to build. Is that possible to do simultaneously with the adoption of the plan?
I think what you could do, because some of those things obviously we can't change without a hearing. So I think what you could do for this step is, in the recommendation, also request direction to begin the work on those items. So you could, as you recommend adoption of the amendment to the comprehensive plan, also request that the village board provide that direction to staff to look for the code-related implementation.
Could you come up, though, with some possible solutions that you might be able to recommend to them so it wouldn't take an inordinate amount of time? I'd really like to get going on this.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I think we could have that available by the next hearing. We've got until December 6th. We could probably have some preliminary list. There's one other comment I just wanted to address that Commissioner Burns made about the costs and the project. The plan does address that. As you noted, Commissioner Raffato, the table of costs is pretty extensive. The one thing that the plan does mention, and I don't know exactly which page it's on, is the method of implementation and the spread of time. The idea behind this is to reduce the cost as much as possible. You've got, as Mr. Persky mentioned earlier, the enhanced ability to apply for outside funding. That's one major piece of having a plan like this. Having the ability to have this implemented over time. You have the one example that we've had most recently, the Lexington Drive reconstruction project. The amount of added cost for that project to include the bike facility that it did was really negligible. If you were to do that starting from scratch, it would be significant. It was done at that time because of the scheduled reconstruction. So having an idea of where you want these facilities just gives you the framework to implement them when you can. And it doesn't have to be the sum total of all of those miles of improvement over 30 years divided by 30. It's not going to be quite like that. So the implementation is, yes, there's low-hanging fruit. Yes, there are some extremely expensive things. Some of those things, many of those things, I don't think there's any expectation that those are going to be costs that are going to be fully borne by the village.
So are we going to continue this?
That's what I would suggest. I think it would probably be best for the commission to see the sidewalk section. If you'd like to make a recommendation minus that, that's fine, but I would suggest a continuation to the 6th.
To what day?
December 6th.
We hear a motion to the effect?
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Motion was made by Commissioner Raffato, second by Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Raffato, I vote yes. Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Steilen?
Yes.
And Chairman Maloney?
Yes. We keep the public hearing open.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. A lot of work went in there.
Thank you.
Good things.
Thanks a lot.
Call docket number 201219, Village of Wheeling, amendments to Title 21, Signs of the Village Code. Mr. Jennings. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Raffato first.
Docket number 201219, Village of Wheeling, seeking amendments to Title 21 signs of the Wheeling Municipal Code, including but not limited to the following. 1, establishing appeals procedure, updating Appendix A, diagrams and sample signs. 3, replacing the bond requirements for a fine for noncompliance. And 4, modifying the sign area bonus for signs incorporating graphics.
Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. I need to be sworn in on this one.
Yes. You swear everything you're about to tell us is the truth.
I do.
And your name is Andrew Jennings?
Still is.
Village of Wheeling. Thank you.
Before I get started, if you don't want to sit through this, you're welcome to. We can catch up via phone tomorrow.
We're not throwing you out. We're just, we're not throwing you
sign
out.
code
We're
is
just giving
really-
you the
it's
opportunity
great.
to escape.
The village staff is, as you know, we from time to time suggest amendments. We compile issues that we have with the code that we've noticed from the review of other dockets, as well as trying to anticipate issues before they come up. At this time, we have a small number of proposed amendments to the sign code. The first one, I'll just go through these in order. The first one, clarifying the appeals process. We had a item recently denied, brought up a question of the process for appeal. We did look through the code. The appeal process is there. It's somewhat convoluted. We find that it would be confusing to the average reader. The reference is hidden, essentially, and part of the reference goes to a different title within the municipal code. So our suggestion is just to bring everything into the sign code, be very clear about it. Are there any questions on this item?
Well, let's see, we have to open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the public wishes to make a comment? I don't see anyone, so we close this portion of the public hearing. And comments from the board? Mr. Raffato.
Is there a cost for an appeal?
There is a cost for an appeal. I think it's $100.
Okay, that's all I had.
It's listed, it's one of those that
Fees.
goes up as needed.
That's all I had.
Mr. Johnson?
Nothing.
Mr. Burns?
Andrew, I get confused on the appeal process because it seems clear in some spots that it goes to the Board of Trustees, as it should. But wasn't there a section in here where the Plan Commission was still the Board of Appeals?
Plan
Yeah,
Commission.
On page 10.
The Plan Commission acts as the Board of Appeals. There is no, there's a very rarely would somebody need to appeal a staff decision to the Plan Commission. The number of things that we have the final authority on are, generally it's going to be on what type of application is needed, and somebody doesn't necessarily need to appeal the staff interpretation because they come to the Plan Commission anyway. So the instance of it is really limited. It's very rare that anybody would need to appeal a staff decision.
So we're the Sign Code Board of Appeals for a staff decision.
You are, the Plan Commission is, in its capacity as a Sign Code Board of Appeals, reviews initial applications for sign permits on the appearance review, but would also, theoretically, if it ever happened, review a staff decision on signage.
Okay, and if we make a decision on that appeal, the petitioner would still have the right to go to the village trustees?
I believe so. I can check on the attorneys with that, but I think so.
Well, that's the last, actually, the last sentence on page 10 says that very thing. So we could probably save the village attorney that one. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Dorban?
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Styler?
Nothing.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Nothing.
And we're back to Mr. Andrews again.
Mr. Andrews.
Jennings, I'm sorry. Getting sleepy.
This next one, I'll try to be brief on it. The Plan Commission, over the last couple of years with some experience in non-compliance on facade repairs and landscaping, modified the section of the code to require bonds for all rather than just winter installations. So after we implemented this section, almost every bond procedure has gone really, I would say the amount of time that the initial permit has taken is really expanded. The new businesses who are trying to identify themselves have become extremely frustrated with just the procedural burden. And what we looked for is an alternate that still is very enforceable. We talked to the finance department about other options. What we came up with in this case is a violation, a clear violation for failure to complete these required elements of a sign. The penalty is comparable, it's actually equal to the penalty for installing a sign without a permit, and it comes to the same section of the code. And what we've done is we've added this new language in the same place in the code where the bond requirement was, and then referenced the code violation section, and then under the code violation section, what you'll see is a new area. I don't know if you'll be able to read this here, but under the code violation section, there's a new penalty for incomplete installation to clarify that this is a violation. Are there any questions on this one? Commissioner Stein?
Yeah, I guess it was unclear to me who exactly the fine is getting levied against. Is it the sign installation company? Is it the leasee of the property? Is it the property owner? And to kind of alleviate any finger pointing by those various parties, maybe we should say definitively who the fine is going to be levied against. You know what I mean?
Well, what he just showed there said the owner or user of the sign, I believe.
The owner or user language is language that's repeated in other places in the code. What we did, let me see if I can find it again real quick. And I think we're open to suggestion on this. We added later on this page, application for permits. a specific authorization related to that is going to need to be signed. So we'll change our existing form probably to include another bullet point on it that says, by authorizing this sign, I acknowledge that the sign permit requires the following, and failure to complete these will be subject to penalty.
But, I mean, in there, you also had a place for the landlord
Yes.
to confirm as well. I mean,
Yes.
I just don't want to get,
I think legally, the owner of the property is ultimately responsible for, once authorizing work on the property, ensuring that it's done properly. So,
I hear you,
The-
but again, if they take it to court, then it's costing us probably more than the $1,000 fine to take it to court and whatever.
if you look up Section B of this same section here, there is a statement here, names listed on the permit are legally responsible for each respective area. So we may need to add something on the permit to indicate who the landscape installer is, making that person then legally responsible. So we can possibly change the permit. This section of the code says if you're on the permit under a certain section, you're the electrical contractor, you're responsible for the electrical work. You, the manufacturer, are responsible for any problems with the manufacture of the sign. So we'll possibly update the code to say who, right now, the permit, we'll probably update the permit to reference that then. Are there any other questions on that section?
Yeah, it's $1,000 for residential or commercial property?
It is $1,000. Yes, in both the two sections of the code. Go back to the same section.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, let me jump back a couple pages. The next section we had is the graphic appendix. We struggled a little bit with this because we were trying to figure out what from the graphic appendix that we had in the code already would be useful to somebody. Try to look at this through the perspective of somebody who's trying to get a sign permit. What would be the most useful graphics for somebody? We believe that some of the examples of signs probably have outlived their usefulness. The sign location, I think, is unique to Wheeling and confusing enough that we still need a graphic that shows that. And that's the graphic that you see right here. The way that we measure signs and the way that the graphic bonus is applied is somewhat unique, so we wanted to make sure that we are still representing that. This is very similar to what's in the code as it is right now. Some of these other ones, unique to Wheeling and slightly confusing, again, need some sort of graphic representation. This is not particularly unique to Wheeling, but there are so many times that a window sign area comes up. It is not a permit for the most part. Very rarely does a window sign involve any sort of permitting. So it's an exempt sign, and this just gives guidance to people who need to see it. It also shows very clearly the coverage across the panes, which I think is probably the most confusing thing to people, is that it's the sum of the window area. This is the biggest change of this appendix. We've added 2 sample landscape plans. There's a plan, a summary of the plan to indicate how it relates to the code. So what does the code say? The code encourages winter interest, evergreens, the use of varied plants, use of stone. So this plan is summarized with respect to what the code says. And then there's a photograph of it as well, so you can see how it looked after installation. And we did one more on another property did the same thing, just as a second example of the code requirement being applied. So that's the extent of the changes to the graphic appendix. Are there any questions on this one?
Yeah, and back to the top of page 27, shows figure 3. There's a compound word there I'm not familiar with. I'm sure you want to put down what you really meant to say there.
That's a good one.
There's landscaping and signs in one word there.
It's not just librarians, is it?
Sounds like a religious order.
Dimensions for
So that is what I
additional
meant to say.
signage?
I'm fairly certain I pasted something from another graphic.
And spell check bought it.
There is no spell check in the graphic.
No.
In my defense.
Evidently.
Anything else from the graphic appendix?
Yes. Last year, the Streetscape Subcommittee recommended for signs a percentage of different types of landscaping materials, and I'd really like to see that addition. I mean, the Plan Commission approved our recommendation, and I think the village board thought it was a good idea. I'd like to see that carried forward into this landscaping graphic area or into the more textual areas.
You're referring to what Lori Hazelwood?
Yeah, I mean, Lori spent a lot of time coming up with an initial plan for certain areas, and we recommended that we have we'd have specific recommendations for high traffic areas, medium areas, and then residential, industrial-ish areas. And I think we ought to carry that out rather than having one fits-all statement. I think that would be more appropriate. So before we finalize this entity, I'd like to, recommend that we attack that particular topic area.
So that would definitely require us to continue this. The question I have,
I mean, I think we can vote on this, but keep the docket open to make future adjustments.
sure, we can do that. So the question I have, if that's the direction to go in, the section that falls under is under the, well, assuming you're talking about residential and commercial, the section that falls under is going to be two different sections.
But it was all signage, so.
Right, so it falls under the freestanding sign residential and freestanding sign commercial and industrial.
Correct.
There's a specific subsection under that. Actually, since we have the whole code, we can just go to it real fast.
Didn't we talk about having some kind of color brochure handout to give to people when they?
That was when we were talking about the zoning code, but if that brochure exists, you can refer to it here too. So that's one option, is just wait until that exists. But if you wanted to adopt percentage requirements faster, you could continue this docket, or at least leave it open so that you can have the ability to keep changing, and come back and just specifically add a bullet point, add a new subsection under this landscaping requirement, which is right here.
Well, if you go to page 29, it gives specific gallonage for the plants. I don't know, I think that what we came up with for a recommendation is far better even than this. I think it gets much more specific.
Well, this is just an example of a plan. It's not a requirement. It's just an illustration of somebody meeting the code.
Well, it just seems to me that the more the more we make it structured for people, the easier it is for them to stay within our request, because if they come in here and they've already got and know what they need to do, and they haven't done it, we could say, refer back to it. We have no teeth in this. We can, now we're at the mercy of asking them or begging them to do a little more. Then they're coming back, or we're asking them to work with staff, and there's the burden on staff again. And I thought that that was part of it, to alleviate some of those things of having to work with staff and making these a little more streamlined. That was my opinion, unless I misunderstood what the direction was.
So this is the section that we're referring to, landscape requirement here.
Yeah, I mean,
So
page
dense
28
cluster
and
plantings
29.
with a minimum area of 1 square foot. So what would be added would be, shall include a minimum of 10% total square footage devoted to, and that's what we would come back with, is just take the recommendation and say 10% shall be flowers, 10% shall be evergreen, however I don't remember exactly what the breakdown was.
Exactly, yeah.
So it would be inside D here.
So, I mean, I'm willing to vote on this as long as we keep the docket open to add that at a convenient point in time in the future. Or work on it.
This evening is just review anyway, right?
Well, it is a hearing, so you do have the ability, we could continue the whole thing and we can come back, or you can, there's nothing, at this time, I don't view any of these as being so urgent that you have to split it and send something to the board. We're into the winter right now, so we're already into the section of the requirement that's been there. We can certainly, I think, get by another month on this, rather than split it up and create a confusing situation.
Yep. I'd prefer to see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the board members. We have no teeth. And I think if it's in the ordinance, it's in the title, then it's got more to it.
Okay.
Okay, that's it, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me back up again. The last section that we have, are there any other questions on the graphic appendix? We can, I think it would make some common sense to just make sure that the two examples that we're using in the graphic appendix would comply. So we can double check that to make sure that they meet the.
Well, in actuality, I think the percentage and the gallonage and all that kind of stuff kind of should work hand in hand, kind of together.
Okay.
Lori would probably be a lot better person to comment on.
Okay. We will double check. And the last thing we had were just miscellaneous updates to reflect interpretations and practices. So who did that? Okay. The directional signs, nothing in particular here that we had any concern with. The one that was probably the biggest difference between what the code said and what we do, what we actually do, is the awnings and canopies. There's a fairly strict language in the code that has not been we haven't interpreted it in the strict sense that the text said. That is the limitation of what can be placed on a canopy. Content is limited to the name of the business and a logo. The canopies that have been erected since this have included the interpretation of tagline as being acceptable, limited additional information. So I think that having something in there that is not reflecting what we've interpreted probably at this time, since we're making other changes, it would make sense to make that modification. Any questions on the miscellaneous changes? Nope. And I think, excuse me one second while I get this visible. We had no minutes tonight. So what I would look for on Title 21 is a continuation to, Mr. Jones, do you think December 6th too much? Or continue to the 6th, and then if it needs to be the 13th, we can move it?
Do I hear a motion?
Please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Call the roll on this, or is just majority?
Voice vote on a continuation is fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's continued. Anything else, Mr. Jennings?
I have nothing else.
Okay.
Don't forget my addition to the agenda, whenever that is.
You want to do that in other business?
Sure, that's fine. I think we can be in other business now.
Go ahead.
Way back when, I recommended that we add some kind of Title 12.04 statement to the bottom of that. Andrew, what do you call that sheet that all the petitioners sign?
We call it the decision sheet.
To add a statement to the decision sheet that somehow is reflective of the language that's in Title 12-04-030, which I'll read it to you if you haven't heard it. Duty to maintain landscaping plans. It says, requires that the owner of developed real estate shall maintain the landscaping according to the landscape plan when that plan was required for acquisition of a building permit. The owner of the real estate shall remove dead trees, shrubs, other vegetation, and immediately replace the removed vegetation with the same species and provided in such a plan. I don't think we need to put that whole paragraph, but if we could just put a note on the bottom of that decision sheet that says that Title 12-whatever requires that all petitioners maintain their landscaping standards according to the originally submitted or approved landscaping plan. Just a sentence like that, so it's in front of them when they sign their signature to the dotted line. They can't say that they didn't know about the plans or whatever, because I don't think anybody really looks at Title 12 that often. It's kind of hidden away.
But, well, the decision sheet is not just used for landscaping.
No, but it is, landscaping is probably involved in every piece of property that comes through us in one way, shape, form, or another. So just a reminder that petitioners are required to maintain their landscaping according to the approved plan doesn't make any statement other than reminding them of their responsibilities according to an ordinance that nobody ever sees.
Well, but why so specific? Why so specific? Why don't you just put a statement that they have to comply to all of the ordinances of the village? Because it might be, what if they put a sidewalk in that's 3 feet instead of 4 feet, and or they change the color, or they change the color of I'm sure there's something in there about maintaining a building, the color of a building that they had in the ordinance, or we put something in there. We've put things in there about times that a store can be open. They just have to comply to all those things. I don't know why we would put something. I'm okay with the statement, but why make it so specific just to landscaping?
Because personally, I have heard many times that petitioners have changed their landscaping, things have died, it hasn't been replaced. They've come in and told us that they didn't know that they had to maintain the then current landscaping plan. So, I mean, it's the fact that statement in Title 12 is so far removed from anything that We do. I think petitioners are probably familiar with the sign code. If it's in the sign code, they're going to do a sign, but they won't refer to something that's out of visual sight. Anyway, interested in seeing what everybody else says.
On the other hand, if you tell them that they have to maintain it exactly as it was approved, they may not ever improve it. Maybe there's something better they can do, and if you're limiting them to keeping it just what we approved.
That's a good point, too.
Well, why can't we just refer back to the code itself? Not that it has to be as it was done, but that it has to be maintained.
Right.
You know, I think that's the problem. The other thing is, you know, I would say we could put in a blanket statement of saying that, you know, the petitioner will follow all the village codes, but they probably haven't even looked at them, much less know what they mean. So that would be kind of a waste of energy, but, you know, putting in something in there to, are required to maintain the vegetation or the landscaping or whatever, not that they'd be limited to what they put in, but so that we can make sure that if trees come down and they die, they don't just cut them down, take them away, and don't replace them. I don't know how we get, I see Terry's point. We already have one that was not in compliance, we know that, and they haven't come back before us, and so it's probably a done issue, but
Well, but why? I mean, we still have Title 12. I mean, it's not a done issue. I mean, if we think that something's wrong, then we have ordinances that we just need to enforce it. A statement like that to me on this decision sheet, I mean, we barely had it before, you know. I was always under the impression it was just so they knew what the voting was, and then when they come in for permit, do they get this information on Title 12? Do they get all of that? If not, then we need to educate them. But on a decision sheet that we have here, just for sign and say, here's what it is, and here's the conditions, you know it's going to be in an ordinance that's going to come through anyway. So, you know, what happens when they get their permit packet? That stuff in there?
There's a acknowledgement on the front of the permit packet they have to sign. I have to double check the language. I don't think it refers to past plans. I think it refers to if it says something to the effect, and don't quote me on this, if this action has received plan commission and or village board approval, no modifications to that approval may be made without first receiving approval of the modification from whichever body approved it. So there's a statement. I'm sure you could read it to mean the past approval, but what I believe it refers to is the item in front of the item that is the subject of the permit. So, you know, I feel like we did draft up a version of this sheet the last time Commissioner Stylen brought it up. I'll have to double check and see what we did with it. I feel like we drafted it, sent it around, and asked for comments, and I do not remember what the result of that was, so I have to double check and see if there was some discussion. I don't remember if it was a staff, if it was plan commission, but I feel like the last time that this was brought up, we put it on there to see what it looked like and circulated it in some fashion. I just don't remember at all what the result of that was.
Could we put this on the agenda for the next meeting?
Yeah, I would just, you know, ask the commissioners, do you really think, Jim, that any petitioner that has come in the past, how long you been here, 5 years, 6 years?
6 years, something like that, yeah. Right.
You know, do you think that they know that they have a duty to maintain their landscaping, whatever was installed?
But all I'm getting at is that it's more than landscaping. It's everything that they've agreed to that they have to comply to. It's just not landscaping. And,
Like,
you know,
like not allowing auto repairs in front of your auto parts store.
Right, well, that's a condition, though. That's a condition, but.
Or
but they
shoveling
have to-
snow off your sidewalks.
But they have to, right, that's a good point. They have to comply to that. So why don't we have something on there on shoveling snow?
But we do, on the village web page, there's a thing that pops up every so often on
But we have Title
shoveling
12.
sidewalks.
We have Title 12.
Nobody reads it. Nobody knows that it exists.
How many hits do we get on the village board, the website? I suggested put it,
How
Talking to a
about
trustee.
this? How about adding, again, we're doing sign code. How about adding something into the sign code, a reference to Title 12 that says, landscaping needs to be maintained over time? Would that be?
I'm of the opinion, and it's just me, I'm one of however many we have on this board, 7 of us. I just think that's overkill. I mean, for a decision sheet that somebody is just signing, here's the conditions are going to come up on a different sheet anyway. I just think it's overkill when you specifically are talking about landscaping. Then you put something, and if this isn't landscaping, just ignore it. I don't know, but I will defer to whatever the rest of the board
How
wants.
about making it a condition if there's landscaping involved?
You don't need a condition, you got a title.
I know that. The idea is, what Commissioner Stylen is saying is, we've got this and it's buried in the titles and no one reads it. If you put it in front of them, when they sign it and the conditions are there, it's a reminder that, you can get some standard wording for it, and anytime there's a landscaping involved, you can just throw that in as a condition.
I would suggest, just in the interest of moving forward on it, I can check what we did the last time, see what it looked like if we did in fact write it up and send it around, have this be under other business on the next agenda, and then I can also get out the permit acknowledgement sheet. When somebody gets a building permit, what does that sheet actually say? There may be an advantage to doing it there instead, where you're actually listing out the person who's getting the permit actually has a pretty significant incentive to comply with the terms of the permit. You have an occupancy, a certificate of occupancy at the end of most permit processes that is a major incentive. So maybe that's the best way to add this to the, put it on the radar. So you have the permit recipient acknowledging that they have to do it. So I'll get both of those out and come back for the next meeting with it on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Something, what Commissioner Stylen read struck me, that Title 12 requires the landowner to replace dead vegetation, trees or shrubs with the same tree or shrub. So if a green ash tree dies from invasion of the borer, technically following the code requires them to plant a green ash tree.
It says same species. so-
Let's go with Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Dorban's suggestion of making it a little more broad and letting.
Well, then maybe we need to change the ordinance.
Yes,
Well,
which
yeah,
will take
just-
another hearing,
yeah,
but
should
we need to
I'm
change
putting
the
it on
ordinance.
Andrew's to-do list, I think.
Are we responsible for Title 12, though? I don't think we are.
Except that we can certainly make a recommendation
Sure.
that the same species should be removed from that particular section.
Now, that we
And
can make a condition, actually,
Something
on
comparable.
each one. It's that is, it's got a landscaping condition that if it dies, you're not replacing it with something that's going to die again, something like that. There's where a condition, if we're not changing Title 12.
Especially ash trees. You
Right.
wouldn't want to put an ash tree in.
So,
There's a whole lot of pine trees
And are we
dying
still-
around town.
Are we still on other business, or was that my?
Well, I'm going to start with the business, that was
Okay.
your thing. Starting with other business, I have an announcement. This is going to be my last meeting. I met with President Abrascato this morning at my request, and gave her a letter of resignation, effective tomorrow, which gives me time to turn over my books and things, and start right here with President Pro Tem.
Oh, great.
And I will also email you forms and things like that. It's been nice being here. I've been doing volunteer work for the village since somewhere in the 1980s, Police Pension Board several times, Human Rights Commission, and so on. And I've got some other things in the fire that I'm working on with getting people jobs, and going to spend more time doing that. And I thank you all for your cooperation. Staff has been great. Well, but, and Mary, miss you too. So, and thank you all, and it's my last meeting. Now, other business, start with Commissioner Rafato.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Johnson.
I can't top that one.
And Commissioner Burns.
Chairman Maloney, thank you for your years of service, not only to the Wheeling community, but I know that it goes beyond the borders of Wheeling. You're nonstop, and the work you do is commendable. It'll be hard to replace here on the Plan Commission, but good luck in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorband.
Good luck with whatever you're planning on doing, and thank you. I do have one question. The December 6th meeting is the first Thursday in the month. That is still going to be a regular meeting, am I right?
Yes.
Anyway, okay. I will not be here then. And my other question was, as long as we were on the sign code issue, do we allow scrolling signage in storefront windows?
Not really. We did check out the question that you sent, I think for a couple of different reasons, but the motion and the overall size of total coverage and the coverage of electric signs. I didn't measure anything, but just eyeballing it. We'll have we've seen it now lit up, but typically a property maintenance inspector would follow up with the measurement side. So we'll combine our night inspection with the daytime inspection and proceed accordingly.
Did it appear over much?
Yeah, just eyeballing it. It looked like it was
Yeah.
over.
But I wasn't, the one thing I wasn't sure about was the scrolling piece of it.
We do not allow signs that have motion like that. So there are exceptions for the video screens, but those are permit signs. These are exempt signs.
I hadn't seen it, but I wanted to check. Thank you for checking.
Sure.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Stylen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd just like to have you all take out your iPads, look at it, and look at the, what I call My Documents screen. I'll give you a little 2-minute tutorial on how to copy things to your PC, or what's even nicer, copy things off your PC to your iPad. So if you all open it up to your My Documents screen, and on the bottom row, you'll see 6 little itty-bitty teeny tiny icons. Do you all see them? First one is a camera, second one is kind of a antenna looking something or other, and then a little starburst thing. You all with me? Mm-hmm. Click on the little antenna looking thing between the star and the camera. You should all have a screen that looks something like this, that gives you 1 or 2 options. If you enter the first one into your Internet Explorer browser URL line, it will open up My Documents on your iPad, and you'll be able to copy things out or copy things in. If you have a Macintosh or something like that, you would use number 2. Sometimes number 1 works as well. So, but again, open up your browser. You can copy documents out, copy documents in. Very nice to do, very simple, easy.
Thank you, Doctor.
So actually what I was looking for when I asked Andrew is, I didn't want the periphery around the Plan Commission meeting. I just wanted the PDF of the actual,
If it's a PDF that's in your document, just drag it out.
no, but these are PDFs.
Oh,
But the
you-
PDF is a whole
Yes,
packet.
you would get the whole.
Yeah, I don't want the whole packet. I just want the actual transportation document. But this was a good one, because I've been wanting to do that.
And you can always extract it out and then just print pages 200 through 300 and make your own PDF. Anyway, that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Just thought that'd be a public service announcement to,
No, it's always good to know something more about Goodreader.
Okay, Commissioner Schaaf.
I have nothing except good luck in your future endeavors, and thank you for your service.
Bill, thank you.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We're out of here.
Good luck, Bill.
Thank you.
We're going to Diego Steve.